better.
Can you do a sound? Can you say like your words?
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1,
That doesn't sound
All you're doing is hitting start and stop, and you can zoom if, and you can pan if you want, but you don't have to.
Oh my gosh, would somebody answer that? What is that?
What? You hear something?
Okay, cool.
Oh, you know what, Stacy?
So far.
If people are at the front door, that might be them ringing. That's what John said earlier.
Yeah. Cool. And then do you have a 30? Hold on. Okay, cool.
You just switch again?
No, that'd be hotter. The sound. So, because I want to make sure you guys don't have to sit here and hold it right to your face, so you can focus on you now. Everybody's got a pen? Everybody's got water? Sounds good. You need some water, but...
The wine would be good. Especially with 4 watts. Wine. It's really good. Is there such a thing as Stacy with 4 wine? Yes, there is. Am I just hearing about this? Amazing. Sounds amazing. I like wine. Where do I get my hands on this wine? Are you selling it at IGA?
Not yet. Yeah.
Something I would do.
Okay, so...
Huh?
Where'd the note cards go?
You can either raise your hand and ask a question, or we're going to do some note cards and pass them out, and you'll take a note card.
Oh.
Okay?
Okay.
I'll ask Stacy.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, she said. Couldn't cover. Larson is not leaving.
Hi. Grab a seat anywhere. Haven't started yet, so okay. Thank you. Let's give them. Perfect. We'll give one more. Let's give one more.
Oh, look at that. That's cool. Look at that. Gotta go. Got it. I thought so too.
We probably could have.
Good evening. Welcome to the Mahomet Area Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum. My name is Walter Pierce. I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber. And welcome to all of you and welcome to our candidates. I'm going to turn it over to Stacy LaCour, who is going to be our facilitator. I do ask if you have cell phones, please, it's like the theater, turn them off or turn them down so we're not ringing. With that, I'll turn that over to Stacy.
I do not, because you hate to be that one guy that screwed it up, and you're the one that's supposed to be in charge in some way. But as Walter said, good evening. We'd like to welcome you to the 2019 Mahomet-Seymour School Board Candidate Forum, sponsored by Mahomet Area Chamber of Commerce and hosted by the Cornbelt Fire Department Protection, Cornbelt Fire Protection District. So thank you, John, and thank you to the firefighters who set all this up. So my name is Stacy LaCour, and I'll be moderating tonight. I am a board member of the Mahomet Area Chamber of Commerce, as well as a realtor with Remax Realty Associates, president of the high school athletic boosters, but more importantly, the parent of 2 kids that grew up in the Mahomet School District from kindergarten all the way to senior year. I've got a junior and a freshman in college now. So the school board has been something, and Mahomet School District itself has been something that's very important to me and to our family, as well as countless families around us. So what they do and what they represent to the community is very important, and we want to make sure that you know, and that's why we appreciate you coming out and kind of hearing what they have to say and supporting the school district. But tonight is not about me. It's not about Walter. Not about John. We love John. But it's about the 8 candidates vying for 4 positions tonight. Our candidates are Jenny Park, who's the incumbent. Jeremy Hendricks. If I say their wrong, name wrong, please correct me. Colleen Schultz. Megan Hennessy, because it's Megan, not Megan.
Correct.
All right. Lance Reaver, also an incumbent. Jason Tompkins. Julie Sobolski. And Ken Keith. The rules or the format, I should say, rules. The format for the forum tonight will be, each candidate will have an introductory statement of about 90 seconds. Following that, we will then have questions that were submitted by the community that were then reviewed and chosen for the candidates in 5 various subjects. With the introduction, we'd like the candidates to tell us about yourself, tell us, you know, if you're currently on the school board, and then the why me question, you know, why me? You know, what either in your past or present or in life, you know, brings you to this point where you want to represent the school board. After that, so with the prepared questions, we'll have 90 seconds to answer each question. I did explain to the candidates that if there is a question or a response that then warrants a response from another candidate, we may go back, but it's not a debate forum. So if we go back, you know, I'll pick and choose, and there's no guarantees that we will go back. More importantly, we'll rotate through the candidates, so each candidate will have the chance to go first. It may become random at some point, but we want to make sure that everybody has a chance to be heard first and foremost. The topics tonight will be financial responsibility in the district, community relations, student achievement, child safety in schools, school board policies and practices. So we're trying to touch on everything that's important, but more importantly, I encourage the audience to ask questions. As we're going through the night, things will come to mind. There's a table in the back, Gretchen Miller from First Financial Bank, sorry. It's where I bank. Gretchen Miller, First Financial Bank, has note cards and pens back there, so please write down your questions. Those come up here. Unfortunately, again, with our time constraints, we'll go to 8 o'clock. We can't guarantee every question is going to be answered, but we will certainly try to get as many of those answers as possible. Beyond that, we've also, with the remainder of the questions, because there are a lot of questions, we're going to then present to the candidates after the forum questions that we will ask them to answer in long form. Those will then be published and edited, or I'm sorry, published unedited, make myself clear, unedited, published to the community so that everyone has a chance to hear answers to questions that we didn't get a chance to ask tonight. With that, the last thing is you see cameras, so we will have a video available or recording available of the if you either want to go back and review or if somebody didn't get a chance to make it here tonight. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our candidates and have them tell us a little bit about themselves. And again, the why me question. We're going to start with Jenny Park.
Hi, my name is Jenny Park. Thank you for coming out tonight. My husband Peter and I have been here since 2013. We have 2 children. One, Noah, he graduated 2 years ago from Mahomet-Seymour High School. He's a sophomore at U of I. And I've got a 4th grader, 9-year-old, at Lincoln Trail. She loves the schools here. She loves the kids. She loves the teachers, actually. I mean, she ranks the teachers as she goes along, and let me tell you, each teacher drops down one. So the current teacher is at the top. I've been a board member for 4.5 years. I'm an attorney concentrating in real estate and land development. So I've been fortunate enough to guide the school superintendent, the school board, and the school district on land use issues for our newest building at Middletown Prairie. and I'd like to continue to sort of provide my services. I'm also a business owner, so I understand the fiscal responsibility versus staff, and so I'm prone to those issues, and that's essentially why me.
Hello, I'm Jeremy Hendricks. Thank you for everybody for coming tonight. It's great to see a good crowd and such interest in our schools. I'm married to Christine. We moved back here in 2004. I say back because Christine grew up here and went to school here for many years. We have 4 children. Annie is a junior, Sam's a freshman, Ellie's a 7th grader, and Joseph is a 4-year-old. So we have a huge interest in how the school is going to continue to perform and succeed. My interest in the school board, I'm a sports medicine physician, so I have a big interest in the health and well-being of our students and student athletes. Our job as a school board is to create an environment where our students, our teachers, our administrators all have the opportunity to thrive. And I think that's probably one of the essential things that we have to do as a school board. Part of that obviously is academic things. We want to see our students be successful and be prepared for all phases of their lives. And creating a foundation here at the Mahomet-Seymour School District is super important. All of us have had impact or influence from teachers and coaches, and I would list this as one of my interest as being on the school board too, is that I've had teachers, coaches invest in my life, and those were very important people in my life, had tremendous influence beyond just any academic, intellectual encouragement, but motivated me, challenged me, really pushed me to go beyond what I thought was possible for myself. And I want to see our students have that same experience.
Hi, I'm Colleen Schultz, and I have 2 kids in the district. I have a 5th grader, a boy, and an 8th grade girl, and they both love being in the district as well. I also am a professional educator and an economist. I got a PhD in economics, and I've been a professor at the U of I teaching statistics and economics for about 25 years. One of the reasons that I am interested in serving our community is to refocus our district back to how I think it used to be in the past, where parents and the district were partners together, where the communication and the transparency was there to have that collaborative relationship, so that we're working together on the same team to educate our kids. Also, as an economist, lots of people don't really know what economics is. They confuse it with other things, and an economist looks at our unlimited resources, that's not right, our unlimited wants with our limited resources, and figures out how to balance those out, right? So we have this idea that we want to do everything and we can't, and we have to prioritize and figure out. And so I want to lend my professional skills and to that as well. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Megan Hennessy. My husband Michael and I and my 2 boys, Brogan and Kelton, moved to Mahomet about 6 years ago from Colorado. And when we were trying to figure out where we were going to move, the schools were going to play a big role in our lives. My eldest was starting 1st grade at the time. And so the reason that we chose Mahomet was for the school district. Over those last 6 years, I've had the opportunity to be pretty involved in the schools. I served on the PTO as treasurer for 3 years, president for 1 year. I was very involved in about 5 dog walks, which was great. Your kids might know me as the crazy dog walk lady out there in a tutu cheering them on. And then I've also had the opportunity to volunteer and be very active within the schools. So all of that hands-on time in the school has given me a unique perspective, I think, about what's going on in the schools. I have a degree in psychology and a master's in business administration, and I have a background in process efficiency. So I feel like the hands-on time that I've had in the schools The relationships that I've been able to build with the students and the teachers and the staff will allow me to bring a new perspective to the board, and then I think I have some skills from my professional past that are would be valuable. And I see this as an opportunity to take the volunteering that I've done in the schools that my children have been in and expand that across the entire district. It will give me a wider reach. I feel like I have a set of skills that will be helpful, and I think that it's quite the opportunity to be able to serve the community, and I really believe in that.
My name is Lance Raver. I've been on the board now for 3 years. My wife Jana and I moved here 8 years ago. We have 3 daughters. Carly is a junior, Kate is a freshman, and Shelby is in 7th grade. They're involved in a wide range of activities: track, volleyball, National Honor Society, youth group, pretty much anything that can make us have to run around like crazy, they do. You know, my interest in serving on the board is actually pretty simple. When we moved here, like probably the majority of the room, we moved here because of the school district. And I take a lot of pride in the district. I take a lot of pride in the fact that my daughters go to school here. And I take a lot of pride that our family lives in this community. I'm very invested in seeing the district and the community continue to do well. Obviously, it's no secret that Mahomet-Seymour is known for an excellent school district. That's been that way for a long time. I want to make sure that when my girls' time here is done and when my time serving is done, we've left the board and the district and the community better than we found it. My background, as I'm almost out of time, I have a degree in finance from the University of Illinois. I'm a certified public accountant. In my prior career, I actually did municipal audits and audits on school districts, so I have a pretty in-depth knowledge of school finance and how that operates. And thank you.
Good evening. That is really loud, isn't it? All right, everybody's awake now. My name is Jason Tompkins, and I want to reiterate what has been said here tonight. Thank you all for coming out. It's great to see our community respond and be this involved. My wife Jill and I have lived in Mahomet since 1999. We moved here as a young married couple, and we just are so very pleased to be a part of this community. We have 2 daughters. We have a sophomore at Mahomet-Seymour High School, Elise, who is 15, and we have a 7th grader at Mahomet-Seymour Junior High, Elena, who is 13. And like Lance, our girls are very involved. We are a part of that crazy band parent group. So in the fall, we are really busy with that. When I present to you the why, I've got to really ask you to have an understanding. My wife asked me last fall, she said, you know, that one night a week that you're home, could you find something to do with that? And I said, well, I could run for the school board. That would take care of Monday nights. And she said, do it. So that's the reason I'm up here. So if you're voting for me, you're really voting for her to give her a break. But there's a plaque at the entrance of the high school that speaks to me, and it says Mahomet-Seymour High School, committed to excellence. And that is why I'm running for the Board of Education. I am committed to seeing this school district prosper and continue to be one of the very, very best in the state. If elected, I'll be 3rd generation in my family to serve on the school board. And so I've grown up knowing how school boards operate, and I look forward to that opportunity to do that here at Mahomet-Seymour. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Julie Sabolsky, and my husband and I have lived in Mahomet for 25 years now. We have 5 children. He is a teacher here at Mahomet-Seymour High School. He teaches English, so you might have heard our name that way. I've been involved with the school ever since we've moved here, even before I had children. So the reason why I'm running is a little bit part of just everything I've done. I have spent my entire adult career supporting children in various ways, from volunteering in schools since I was 18 years old, to becoming an educator, to becoming a foster parent, a birth parent, and an adoptive parent. We fostered children for 20 years. We have 2 birth children. And ultimately, after you foster for long enough, some of the kids stay. So we have 5 children, and their age range is 14 to 23. They've been involved in all kinds of activities at Mahomet-Seymour and have had really positive school experiences. So this is just me supporting more about our community. My job as a child in child welfare I've worked in child welfare for 20 years, and I am a liaison between child welfare professionals and caregivers. And I feel like my role in my professional job is not that different than what I was doing on the school board, mediating between a job that I know well as a teacher and as a parent of 5 children.
Hello, my name is Ken Keith, and I'm going to start my story with the best day of my life. I met my wife on the college marching band field at SIU 18 years ago, and then about 10 years ago we moved to the country north of Mahomet and decided to start our family. We became foster parents and have fostered 9 children and have adopted also. I have always had a strong desire to advocate for children, advocate for the best things, to help children. And that's really why I'm running as a school board member. I feel like I could be a strong advocate in that way. I have served over the last 5 years on the Illinois Statewide Foster Care Advisory Council. This is a state level public body that advocates for foster families throughout Illinois. The last 3 years I've been the policy and legislative chair, and this last summer I was recently elected the vice chair of that council by its membership. And more locally, I've been very active with the PTO, serving on the board, and just this last year I chaired the dog walk program, which raised record funds this year. And I'm also, I recognize many of you from my time coaching with the Parks and Rec department as well.
Thank you. So just so everyone is either aware, and you might be, so we've got, as I mentioned earlier, 8 candidates vying for 4 different positions, 2 inside of the district, or inside of the township, and 2 outside of the township. So just so everyone kind of understands where we're going from here. So now we're going to, like I said, go into the questions that were presented to us by the community. We collectively kind of got together and decided, within the chamber, decided which questions we wanted to ask. So since, Ken, you have the microphone, this first question is to you, and then we'll just slide down. We're going to give each candidate 60 seconds to answer the questions, and then, like I said, if a debate arises, we'll approach that as it comes. And don't forget that you can ask questions by filling them out on the, yeah, I know, I went from 9 to 6.
I was going to say, we just lost it, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
We just lost it.
Megan will just get 9.
Yeah,
I'll keep it fair.
but we're gonna no, but we'll try and let you finish the thought, because I know I know it can be tough. But I actually want to make sure that you guys can get out as many points as possible.
I'm good with it. It's all good.
All right, so the one question on everybody's mind, the one question that everybody wants to ask and that everybody wants to answer is fiscal responsibility. Fiscal responsibility seems to be a topic most candidates are asked to talk about and like to talk about. What does fiscal responsibility within the district mean to you? For example, and this doesn't have to be your example, do you believe the sale of Sangamon was a positive or negative to the district?
Okay, so yeah, I'm glad you're asking about this. This is an issue that all 8 candidates are talking about. For me, fiscal responsibility is about balancing our revenues and our expenditures, and also maintaining a low debt. And for me, the concern with our district in its current state is the very sizable amount of debt. Our school district currently has $37.6 million of debt. That is much higher than surrounding areas when you control for our population and our revenues. And when we pay this debt off, number one, if we don't add any more new debt, And if we pay this off on schedule, we will have spent $9 million in interest alone. To me, that is an incredible waste of money. Debt really is just the worst form of taxes. Our tax dollars are what pays for debt, and we have to pay for that interest.
Same question?
Yes.
All right, so definitely fiscal responsibility is a concern of mine. It's important, it's responsible. I am concerned when I've learned about how much debt our district has accumulated. Our facilities are wonderful, but it's concerning that we've accumulated that much debt. Not all of it is from building facilities. So from building our new facilities, about $17 million of our debt is due to that. I think that some changes can be made as we are better planners. It was a little wonderful last night to hear about the renovations that are going to happen to the field house. They are necessary. I'm in full support of that, but we knew it was coming. It was something that we could have planned a little bit better for when we're talking about $1 million to upkeep a building that is wonderful, a wonderful contribution to our community.
So I'm a general manager of a sign company, and so understanding how budgets work and cash flow works is what I do every day. And yes, the school district does have debt, but what's really important to understand about that debt is we have something to show for it. Middletown Prairie is the largest portion of our debt, which is all funded by the 1% sales tax, the countywide sales tax. Okay, none of that comes from your property taxes. That's a very important thing to recognize. So our mortgage payment, if you will, on those new buildings out there, which will last for decades, is approximately just under $2 million a year. We get $2.4 million a year from the 1% sales tax. That's cash flow. It flows. So that is being paid for. What's also really important to understand is that mortgage is going to be paid off in 13 years. According to a Washington Post report, about 60 or more than 60% of us have mortgages, or at one time had a mortgage. Probably a lot of you in this room do. I know I do. It's just a way we can ensure that we're providing the best facilities, best learning environment. So it's really important to understand how our debt really works.
The Mahomet-Seymour district has been extremely financially responsible. Talking to the 8 of us up here, no disrespect to anyone else, but I'm probably the most qualified to talk about it because of my background. But if you ignore all of us, go to outside experts. Standard & Poor's is a leading, globally recognized bond rating agency. All they do is rate debt for municipalities and businesses all over the world. They've looked at our financial situation and they've given us a grade of A+. That tells the story. They are a disinterested third party of experts, and they're telling us that we've been fiscally responsible, that we're continuing to be fiscally responsible, and that our debt load, you don't want to focus on the number, you have to put it in context, kind of like Jason was saying. Our debt load is very appropriate for the size of the district we have. It's also important to note that by October of this year, we'll pay off $4 million, and by October of next year, we'll pay off another $4 million. We are rapidly decreasing the level of debt we have.
So when I think about fiscal responsibility, I'm in agreement with what was said here, but I'd like to just take it in a little bit different direction. I think fiscal responsibility to me means we have to understand what our priorities are as a district. For me, the priorities have to center around making sure that our kids have access to the tools that they need and that they have a staff that is supported in a way that allows them to be most effective. And so when you talk about fiscal responsibility, I think what has to be part of that discussion is understanding where your priorities are and making decisions against those priorities every single time. And I feel like we could refocus our priorities from facilities that look nice, which is important, but I'd like to bring it back to what do the kids really need and what does the staff need in order to accomplish that. And so that would be the way I will bring a fiscally responsible viewpoint to the board.
So, I'm an economist, and I know that when you start to look at something, you need to start from the beginning. I'll steal a line from my daughter's play this weekend. You need to begin at the beginning. And so for me to begin, I need to understand what the fiscal state of the district is. And we hear so many different things from so many different people. So I decided to go to the Illinois State Board of Education and ask about the fiscal state. Turns out the Illinois State Board of Education ranks all the districts in the state on their fiscal state. And of the 852 districts in our state, we rank 28 from the bottom. There are categories that we are in, and there's 3.3% below and 95% are above us. So I called the state, because I thought maybe I'm not looking at this right, or maybe there's something else to go. And I asked, is there any way that we could be in this low category without, and be still fiscally responsible? And she said there is no way. It is very accurate, and we look at a large number of things, a large number of facets. And so that makes me think that we have some work to do. And I would like to lend my professional expertise into looking at how our district is doing with our finances.
I agree with some of the things that are being said here tonight. I think it's important to remember too that the 1% countywide sales tax can only be used on facilities. It's not something that we can take and put into another fund and use for other things within the school district. We're required to use those on facilities. We're not taking any educational funds and moving that to take care of facilities. We're using that 1% sales tax to service our debt in those areas. And I totally agree. We have to be prioritize and think about what's important. But Middletown Prairie, we were outgrowing the buildings that we had here and much in need of new structures to take care of those. We have a wonderful, up-to-date facility that is recognized as one of the best in Illinois. And we have to be good stewards of those things, being good stewards of not just dollars and cents, but also good stewards of the facilities that we have, being good stewards of making sure that we have facilities and opportunities for our students. And part of that is being able to maintain structures as well. And you know, the repairs that go on in some of these older buildings can also get very expensive over time. And to put in a new facility like we have, I'm very proud of that Middletown Prairie Elementary School that we have. And I look forward to all the things that are going to continue to happen there and educate our students.
All right, going last is tough. Because you hear all that, fiscal responsibility is probably one of the most important things in a school district. And actually, school finance is probably the toughest to understand. I am still learning as a board member on school finances and the different buckets, and you can't intermingle those buckets. So we think of all this money in a pool when we're lay people, but unfortunately you can't cross those, as Jeremy stated, is that 1% is for the facilities. And you have an operations fund, which also has different layers of buckets which can't intermingle with each other. I get that we need to be thinking about priorities, and that's something the board discusses consistently. And with priorities, just like anything else, we have to think about, are we going to raise taxes? Property taxes have been pretty stagnant for the past 30 years. And the school district has worked hard to make sure that they're not passing those costs on. So we do prioritize.
So since we're already there, and again, it's a hugely important topic, in a quick one sentence, which I know is difficult and it's going to be tougher for Jenny because she's going to go first versus Ken, who's going to go last. No, but take a moment to think about it. In one short sentence or short verse, what would you either maintain the status quo of or change within the school district to kind of balance that fiscal responsibility, if that makes sense. So what would you either, either what is the school district doing really well, or what's that one thing that you see or that you've talked about that could change to make it fiscally responsible?
Well, I think it's the prioritizing. We talk about this to figure out what is important and what is less important. So we can't do everything. We can't be thinking about fiscal responsibility, and that's not one sentence, by the way. So that's impossible task that you gave us.
Yeah.
You can't be thinking about school finance in a vacuum. So you can't say we've got over $30 million in debt and we need to do something about it. Doing something about it, but then also trying to make sure that we keep our academic excellence means that something's got to give, and what's got to give. And that's essentially what I think the board needs to be considering, and the school district needs to be considering.
I'm going to try to keep it to one sentence. Our debt, our current debt is serviceable by that 1% countywide sales tax, and I haven't changed sentences yet. And
Well done.
our debt we're scheduled to be paid off on all of that facilities debt in 13 years.
So you're saying that right now status quo looks pretty good?
It doesn't look bad to me.
There you go.
I would say that I think what we could do is to address the priorities of the community and the district, and to have discussions that include the community so we understand what's valuable to the community, so that when we have our limited dollars, that we can use them to get more of the things that our community wants and values.
I'm happy she didn't use one sentence.
One sentence. Everybody knows that money is tight. It's tight. Kids have to come first. Kids and teachers have to come first.
Agree 100%. Kids and teachers come first. But with the money that we get from the sales tax, putting them first means building facilities, because legally, that is the only thing that money can be used for.
You don't have to tear down the house to remodel the kitchen. And what I mean by that is, are there certain areas that we might want to pay attention to and monitor? Absolutely. But we have physically a very good structure in place in this district, and and that does not just happen. It takes a lot of work to get to that point. And I would encourage the board going forward to continue to monitor that. And again, as Megan says, prioritize. But keep in mind, we do not have to wreck everything just to change one little part.
Piggyback on what Colleen said a little bit is we need to address what is most valuable to our community and allocate our funds to what is best to grow in the direction and our goals as a community and a board. And I also want to just back up to what I said earlier, is I think we really need to do a better job of planning forward with our expenses.
Yeah, the last thing that Julie said is the key. We need to do a much better job of planning. Yes, there is a 1% sales tax that's paying for our debts right now, and it's paying down our debts. But if we had done better planning and realized that, hey, buildings are going to deteriorate, we're going to need to replace the field house floor once it reaches its lifetime limit, we would be paying for things out of savings instead of out of debt. And now that we're paying with things using debt, we're wasting $9 million.
Okay, so Julie, this question goes to you first. We're going to switch to the topic of community relationships. As a member of Mahomet, whether you have kids in the schools or not, you often get roped into the schools, whether it's someone dog walk, or, well, it used to be jump rope or hard, so there's always those things or you're blocked by parade, or you're in the parade. So as a member of the school board, what do you believe it means for the school board to engage the community and students in decision-making, and what have you done, or what will you do to engage the stakeholders of the community, the pillars of the community in that relationship with the school board?
Okay. So as far as community relations, I recognize completely that it is very difficult decisions that the board has to make, and it's not going to always please everyone. I understand that. What I'd like to see, can you repeat the first part of the question so I'm addressing it properly?
Yeah, not a problem. What do you believe it means for the school board to engage the community?
Okay. So, I really feel like our school board can be more positive in their relationship with our community. I don't feel as a member of the community that I have had much of a voice. I don't have too much input. So as a board member, what I would propose is that we, one of our policies of the school board has is to connect with the community. And I would, we have the opportunity of our standing board committees to invite community members to be part of those decision-making decisions being made with only 2 school board members and community members in discussions.
I think it's very important to realize that the community needs the school district and the school district needs the community. If any of you attended the joint meeting of the Board of Education and the Village Board last month, they had hired a demographer to look at trends in our community, and there's no doubt that a lot of people come to Mahomet because of the school district. That's why people are here. I don't care what relationship you're in, whether it's a school district, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a business, you have to continually engage. You have to continually talk. Obviously, a campaign will get you out talking to people, but I definitely believe that people need to take an interest in what is going on in the school district. Come to board meetings, be engaged. At the end of the day, we all, who are parents, we are our child's advocate. That's a grown-up thing, and we have to do that, but we have to be engaged and we have to be involved.
I think Jason said it great. You know, we all are stakeholders. We all have to be involved. And this is a pretty timely question because just this month, the board kicked off our strategic planning and community engagement activity. And what that is doing is inviting all parts of the community to engage with us, to take a look at what the next several years look like, whether it be facilities or whether it be anything that has to do with the school district. And the key there is we're asking all members of the community. You know, a lot of times we think schools and we think parents. Well, everyone in the community has a stake in this. We're all in this together. If you look at the field house that's been talked about, a lot of community members use that field house, don't have any children in the district. So this initiative that's going to be taking place here starting in the next probably 30 to 45 days is a great opportunity for the district and the community to come together and really hear what's important to the community.
Well, for me, communication centers around relationships. So what I would like to see the board do is invite all of the stakeholders in the community to have a different type of relationship by setting up study sessions where people are able to come and talk, setting up sessions with students where student voices can be heard. My kids come home and give me a lot of information. I think they know a lot about what they need, and so we need to set up environments and areas and ways for them to come and talk to us too. I've stood up at board meetings before. There's a real short time that you can stand up and be heard. I think we need to take a look at building relationships and making other areas and other opportunities for people to come, be that students, be that parents, be that taxpayers, and invite them into more of a conversational setting than a board meeting so that we can actually foster relationships, because relationships are the key to good communication.
I agree. Communication is the bedrock of trust. We are trusting the school district with our kids, and that communication is really important to maintain there. I think that as the board engages the community, for me that means two-way communications, not just listening to what people have to say and then in a separate situation telling them what I have to say, but actual engagement together where people are not only listened to but heard and responded to, and people's thoughts are taken into consideration. I think that's really important. And the other thing is that it's not a one and done thing. You can't just set up a few meetings and then think that you have done community engagement. To me, community engagement is an ongoing thing that we're going to need to engage in every month, every board meeting, every time we make a big decision, because that's where trust is. And it's not what I've been seeing, and that's one of the things I want to change about the direction our district is going.
Community engagement is definitely a two-way street, and I agree with a lot of the things that are being said here. Relationships are super important, and just being available. And I've had phone calls from parents and teachers and community members in the short time that I've been on the board since last summer. And availability is one of those keys. And all of you should know that I am available, and I think all of the other board members and any of these who are elected here would be available at any point. I'm happy to talk anytime. And yes, being intentional about that engagement is certainly important, and I think we have to look at some of those things and options that we might have going forward. But I would really encourage you to take part in this strategic planning and community engagement we have coming up over the next few months.
I would agree with all of these, obviously. You know, community engagement is a two-way street, and the board is an evolving board. It's not a set board where everybody on the board is set on their ways. We want to hear and get input and make changes as the community feels, but it can't be a free-for-all either, because obviously there is business that has to be conducted. School district is a business, and so we need to make sure that we have sort of a midpoint, a happy point, because we can't always be in meetings where you've got 50 different opinions and nothing can be decided because you've got 50 different opinions. So you put that power on us. You select your board members and you have to trust them. I understand that they have to gain your trust, but you have to trust them. If you question everything that they're doing, then the board is broken and the school district can't run.
So I see a big difference between trying to intervene in decisions and trying to provide input. I think what is necessary is for voters, the people that the school board is supposed to be representing, to provide input. And I also, maybe this is a little snarky, but I'm really glad that the school board is taking a serious look at how to do community engagement. I question why it happened a month before the election and why we haven't been doing this for decades now. To address your original question, for me, having community engagement is about breaking out of your bubble. I think that a lot of the board members are putting a genuine interest in trying to do that, but they don't ever escape their bubble. They talk with their friends, they talk with the people that email them, and they assume that that is engaging with the public. The things that I would like to do would be having town halls, having open office hours where people can come and meet with you. That's something you see in other school districts that school board members do. And really, that's what you see in other public bodies. You see a dialogue with the people that you're representing, our taxpayers.
Thank you. Next question is going to go to Jeremy. I knew we needed more mics. All right, so this is a question that actually we received a few times because of the way the candidates are being just laid around town. It seems that the campaign, or during this campaign, there are two groups of 4 candidates, or at least 2 groups of candidates that have posters collaged together, similar backgrounds, graphics, web pages, what have you, that are kind of campaigning exclusively with each other. Can you, and this again for each of you, explain if you're representing yourself, or if you're in a collective group, and if so, you know, what, if so, why?
I can only speak for myself, so I represent myself, and anybody else here at this table and forum can obviously speak for themselves too. We do have a group of us who are cooperating together, and I'm not ashamed of that. We trust each other, we like each other, we share some common values and interests, so it makes sense for us to cooperate. When you vote on April 2nd, you vote for 4 individuals. You don't have to vote for a team of board members or a team of candidates. You have to fill in individual ovals on that ballot sheet. So everybody obviously can make their own decisions. But yes, are we cooperating and working together? Absolutely. We share some common values, we share common interests, and we trust each other.
We also are campaigning together, but I also only speak for myself. One of the things that happen with our group is that we have some things that we have similar goals on. We want to be for kids, we want to be for teachers, we want to be for community, for transparency, but we also have very different platforms and very different backgrounds. And I believe that the different backgrounds we have and the different opinions we have, and the fact that we don't always agree on everything, brings us strength if we were to be on the board. Diversity of opinion is really important, and I think that explaining your position and jockeying back and forth is really important. And so as long as we have that similar underlying goal that we're all for the kids, I think our differences bring us strength.
This is a hot topic. This has been going around. So I'll do my best in a minute. When the 4, I guess, incumbents, or 3 incumbents and Jason decided to team up, it really just left 4 other people. And if you've been helping your kids with Common Core math, you know that we tend to group things together. So, much to my chagrin. So once they grouped up, it kind of left 4 people. And so groups were just kind of formed. We had very intentional discussions about whether or not we wanted to run as a slate. It was very clear to the 4 of us that we did not want to run as a slate, because part of the reason that we were running is that we wanted that diversity of opinion, and we think that that's what makes a healthy board. But we do have priorities, as Colleen said, in that kids and teachers are what we would like to focus on. So when it comes to making decisions, I feel like we have common priorities and that we would be good decisions makers, and we would have kids and teachers first. And certainly that diversification of opinion is crucial for a healthy board.
My perspective is maybe a little bit different because I've sat in meetings with Jeremy and Jenny and not always agreed with them. And sometimes we have pretty big difference of opinion. But the interesting thing is we always walk out of those meetings respecting each other, respecting each other's views, and genuinely being interested in what the other person is thinking, why they're thinking it, and needing to question whether we need to reevaluate our position on that topic. I am absolutely supporting Jeremy and Jenny and Jason, and it's for one very simple reason. I have 3 girls in this district, and the people that serve on the board come April 3rd are going to make decisions that impact my girls. And these are the 3 people that I trust to make those decisions for my girls.
When the 4 of us finally got together and decided we wanted to campaign for each other, I thought, what in the world do I bring to the table? I've got an attorney, a doctor, and a financial advisor, and it turns out they needed a sign guy. So I'm in the sign business, so it worked out pretty well. These are people that I have known for many years. Our daughters learned to swim in Lance's pool from Mrs. Raver, and our daughters have been friends forever. And these are just people I have known through the school board, and I've been intentional about getting to know them. Trust me when I tell you, we all have different opinions, and when you campaign together, you sometimes learn what those opinions are. But just as Lance said, at the end of the day, we are able to come to a consensus. We're able to make a decision, and we're able to leave a room still friends. And I believe that's a big big part of this decision-making process when you're looking at board members. You want independent thinkers, and you want people that will share their points of view, but at the end of the day, you have to come to a consensus, and you have to make a decision what's in the best interest of the entire district.
So, we decided, the four other candidates have decided intentionally, like Megan said, to not run as a slate. We all do have independent ideas, and we want to keep it that way. I was approached by a number of people in the community who said, Julie, I think you have something that you can share. And so I came to know Megan, Colleen, and Ken just with that thought. And we have had lots of discussions, and they know I don't always agree with them. Things that stuck out to me with our current school board is there is, like some of the other people have said, there is a positive part of having diversity of opinion, and I want to keep it that way. But our current board has made unanimous decisions without public discussion on every major decision that they've made, and that's concerning to me. So I would like to see a little more public discussion so I can see that they all have diverse ideas and are coming to the table with difference of opinion that's worth discussing.
So I think you could have guessed the answer was going to be from all 8 of us. Yes, we're independent, but I think when you look at the evidence and you look at all the signs around you, it is very clear who is on the slate and who are independent candidates. If you look at, all 8 of us are running on 4 specific issues that we're focusing on. If you look at the issues that we're each running on, the 4 that are on the slate are running on identical issues, and they talk about it identically. The 4 that are independent voices are talking about different topics. I'm the only one on up here that's talking about classroom sizes, for example, and there are other topics that the other independent candidates are talking about that no one else is. I think this is a perfect indication of what this will bring for our future, our school board's future. With this election, it's about whether or not we value diverse ideas, diverse opinions, or whether or not we want to stick with the status quo of going along with the group.
All right, I didn't realize this was such a hot topic. Obviously, like everybody else said, I am my own person, and we do have disagreements. I disagree with other board members, and I'm very vocal about it. When we have these discussions, and my other board members would probably say, yes, she does have an opinion, and sometimes they're very strong. But at the end of the day, we do respect each other. I listen, and sometimes what other board members may say will essentially make me change my thoughts because I see a different vision of that and different version of that. And we are all from different backgrounds. We are not, I wish I was a sports medicine doctor, but I'm not. I'm an attorney. We are all from different backgrounds, and we all have our different aspects and inputs from our life. And so I don't know that the 8 of us are any different. We have different platforms, we have different thoughts, we have different opinions, which we should, and you should hear them. But on April 2nd, you get to vote for those 4 individuals.
All right, if I can yell across the soccer field to Sam, then I sure as heck can reach you guys over there. That way these guys don't have to microphone. All right, so we're going to switch over to education policies and practices inside the classroom. So again, a topic that is near and dear to all of our hearts. One of the public questions actually is in this question here. Within our schools, and we're going to start with Colleen first. Within our schools, we see children with learning disabilities that struggle in the classroom while at the same time perform well on standardized testing. As we all know, standardized testing is what attributes sometimes to the IEPs or 504s, that kind of extra help that sometimes they need. What can be put into place to help that population of kids not fall through the cracks?
So, in my 60 seconds, I'll give you one idea, and then there are many others that we could use. One of my ideas for that would be that we could try to address the needs of our students within the general population. So for an example, dyslexia is a common problem. You know, people say between 5 and 20% of students have dyslexia. It hinders you from learning to read. A lot of those students are too smart, quote unquote, on the standardized test to qualify for services. But there are programs, for example, an Orton-Gillingham curriculum that could be used. It's gold standard for dyslexic kids, but also has a way to be pushed into a typical classroom or a general classroom. And if a system like that were incorporated into the curriculum, then the needs of the kids that were dyslexic would be met and the needs of typical learners would be met. And so we could find ways that we could push into the classrooms to meet the needs of all the students. I'm sorry, can you just one more time?
Not a problem. Within our schools, we see children with learning disabilities that struggle in the classroom while at the same time these same kids perform well on standardized tests, which subsequently fail to qualify them for either an IEP or a 504 plan intervention, so that extra help. What can we do to help these kids not fall through the cracks?
Well, I think all of our kids are in different spots. So there's a spectrum out there for kids. We have high learners, we have kids with challenges, and then we have a whole spectrum in between. So I think when we talk about curriculum and then diversification within the classroom, I think we need a broader look at how we choose curriculums and how we address each of these kids. I think teachers have a really hard job. I think one of the things that makes this more challenging are the class sizes that they have. Teachers have a lot of kids that they have to help right now. I think if we're going to have any real impact on getting these teachers what they need, I think we need to work on making these classes smaller, and then we need to say what are the curriculums that are available to us that have a wider spectrum when we talk about learners who are gifted, learners that might have disabilities, and then everyone in the middle. If we can't reduce class sizes and give teachers better tools, this is going to be a really, really hard thing to fix.
Can slide that mic down that way. It's easier there.
Stacy, you bring up a really good question, but you're asking the wrong people. There's people in this room that can answer the question, and they're not sitting at this table. None of us sitting here are professional educators. None of us should be trying to substitute our ideas and our Google research or whatever else for the people that are actually professional educators. If you've got a finance question, I'm your guy. If you've got a curriculum question, you should probably talk to my wife or Dr. Rommel or Dr. Hall. We should not be making curriculum decisions that affect kids with IEPs and 504s. None of us are trained to do that. Quite frankly, none of us are qualified to, even get involved in the nuts and bolts of that, because none of us have a fraction of the knowledge that our teachers and our principals do. Those are the people that we've hired. Those are the people that are experts. Those are the people that should be making those decisions, bringing that information to the board with their recommendation, giving us their knowledge, and then allowing us to provide the input, not the other way around.
Well, I'm a firm believer that our teachers are, they probably have some of the toughest jobs out there. They really, really do. And they are the people that are with our students each and every day. In fact, they're probably with our students more than we're with our students. And so I think as a Board of Education, we have to make sure that our administration is hiring the very best teachers that can address the needs of our students. And I want to be very clear, because I know there's some teachers sitting here in the audience tonight. If elected to the Board of Education, I am not walking into your classroom to tell you how to do your job. You have been trained to do that. You are the professional. We're trusting you with our kids. If you want to invite me in to talk about something on career day, that's fine. But I am putting my child in your hands, and I expect you to do a good job, and I'm going to trust you to do that.
Okay. So I believe that we do need to explore curriculum, and I believe that we need to do it by collaborating. With our staff members, we need to do a better job of researching what we're doing when we purchase, researching before we make a purchase. Because the fact of the matter is, the standards that the state of Illinois is requiring us to meet are pretty intense. They are immense. I've studied them myself. I homeschooled my daughter for 2 years. I realize how difficult it is to meet them. So with that, we do need to purchase curriculums. That is a huge expense that our district makes. And I believe that we need to spend some more time collaborating with our staff and asking them, what curriculum do we need? What's the one that's going to meet all of our children's needs best?
Okay, a lot to talk about here. So I have yet to hear a single candidate mention that they want to go in and tell teachers how to do their jobs. I believe all 8 of us believe in the high training that the teachers have and respect the decisions that they make. However, it is set forth in the Illinois School Code that the responsibility of the school board, in addition to managing our finances, is to make decisions about curriculum and evaluate our superintendent, our administrators, our principals, and our teachers. It's very clear in the school code. You can go and look it up when you get home if you really want to read it. So I think that's a very serious responsibility, and I'm a little alarmed that there's no interest in focusing on that as part of the board. To get back to your original question, I think one major strategy for helping children in those types of situations is to simply improve our relationships with parents. As I've been canvassing and talking to people one-on-one, I've had this issue raised a lot with me, and I've heard from a lot of parents that when they have reached out to the special education and to administrators for help with their students, they are being left out of the picture. They're not being listened to, and they're not being given reasons. It's just, we can't afford that, or you haven't qualified, you haven't met some minimum requirement. And in my opinion, we need to be meeting our students where they are.
All right, education certainly isn't what it used to be when we were in school, right? I mean, there's a lot more kids to be responsible for and worry about. It's not just about academics. We also have social and behavioral things that need to be taught. And I think that no one is saying that the board doesn't want to be responsible for curriculum. It's that we want to hear from our professional educators because that's what they're trained for. We listen to them as to what is good. For example, Middletown Prairie added active movement curriculum because they recognize that by moving, kids learn better. And that's been a tremendous asset to Middletown Prairie. So I agree with everybody else that curriculum is extremely important, and the board isn't saying, I don't want to be involved in the curriculum, we should leave it to the teachers and the administrators. That's not the burden we're putting on the administrators and the teachers, but that we want to get input because it is not up to us to say, hey, here's what you guys need to do. It's for them to come to us and say, here are the things that are happening, and for us to consider those things.
First of all, I value our teachers and our administrators and their expertise. I'm certainly not an expert in curriculum, and I am freely admitting that. But I'm smart enough to know that I need to ask questions, and I need wise counsel, and I need input from our parents, our community, our teachers, as to how we can best meet the needs of everyone in our school district. So I think it's more than just having an idea. It's listening, reasoning, thinking through those issues. And if there are issues that need to be addressed, then certainly that needs to come to our attention. That needs to come to the board's attention, the administrator's attention. But we have to, none of us are experts in everything. We have to have guidance. We have to have wise counsel from those who are in the day-to-day educating our students. And very important for us to take that input from all those sources and then make decisions based on that.
Next question is going to go to Jason. With your experience in signs, this should be easy for you. So, several candidates have mentioned even tonight class sizes in Mahomet School District, and so the question is, class sizes in Mahomet School District are above the state average. With more families moving to our community or the schools, what is your thoughts or plans to decrease class sizes or decrease the strain on the educators and students?
Sure. Well, when you think in terms of class size, I don't know of anybody up here on this panel who is advocating for a larger class size. I think let's just get that out there right now. No one is really pushing for that. But I think, Stacy, what you have to do is you have to think in terms of an order of things, okay? In order to have smaller class size, you must first have the class space. And so I think what the district is getting ready to do and looking forward in the next strategic plan is getting input from the community on how we need to improve our facilities. Obviously, been great improvement with Middletown Prairie. If you've been to that facility, it's a state-of-the-art facility, best in the area. Obviously, the junior high, if you walk in that, you have a different feel. It's just a completely different thing. And so not only is it just class size, but it's also the general learning environment. So I think we have to address several issues. But first of all, we have to make sure we have the space to eventually decrease those class sizes.
So, agree, nobody here would like to see class sizes go up. There are studies that show that, especially in the younger grades, class sizes that are smaller by 7 students have an increase in reading ability by 5 to 7%. So that's our core learners, our early learners. It's really important for us to be lowering our class sizes. So definitely, I agree with that. As a board member, I really would have to evaluate the funds right now and see where are we going to take money and put it towards that, but it's definitely a priority. And to quote Colleen over there, she always says we have unlimited wants and a limited amount of money, and then we're going to have to figure out how we prioritize that, but that is definitely a priority because we've got to get our kids off to a good start.
Yeah, I'm glad that this issue came up. For those of you that don't know, for example, in grade 3, our average class size is 27, and the Illinois state average, all across the state, including Chicago, the average is 20. So we are very significantly above class statewide averages across the grades. In terms of solutions, unfortunately, this is a problem that has only long-term planning solutions. We need to be planning our finances so we're out of debt. We need to be planning our facilities so we have the space. Right now, we have the space at Middletown. That's the good news. They did a nice job with that building, I would readily admit. We do have the space to add. Now the question is, do we have the finances for teachers? And in my opinion, it's about setting priorities and focusing on that. For me, it would be a very high priority to lower class sizes. I think it's an essential indicator for how successful we will be. Over at our other buildings, unfortunately, our planning has not been as good. We have no room at Lincoln Trail. We have no room at the junior highs. As an intermediate stopgap measure, I would advocate for adding a co-teacher or a teaching assistant in the classroom to help the teacher manage her time resources better.
Okay.
Well, I agree that obviously no one wants big class sizes, and that is something the board needs to continue to look at, and that's good future planning. And you know, one of the things we discussed was that if we had an infinite amount of resource and finance and money, like Colin said, we'd have really good class sizes, right? But that's not the reality, because essentially we rely heavily on property taxes and state funding, and we all know what the condition of the state of Illinois is. So we have to balance that, and I don't believe, while we would like to see class sizes reduced, I don't believe that has affected the education of the kids. We've got excellent schools, and obviously we've mentioned in our introduction that everybody comes here for the school district, right? And they continue to come for the school district. So I think we need to continue to work. We are working towards getting out of debt for the operations in the next 2 years. And Lance can correct me, but in the next 2 years, we will have that debt paid off so that we can essentially start planning and continue to plan.
I agree with everyone's opinion here that reducing class sizes would be optimal, but again, having to take into consideration what's available with resources, what's available with facilities, what's available with the money that we have to provide those opportunities. And we have wonderful teachers, and obviously we need to be able to assist them in whatever ways that we can, and all those things are on the table. I mean, the board is always open to looking at opportunities to improve our classroom environment, improving opportunities for our teachers and for our students as well. But it's something that there's layers of things that we have to consider, and that's something going forward, as Jenny said, that providing some strategic planning over the next 5 to 10 years is going to be very important in meeting those needs, especially in those younger age groups that seem to be growing in their class size.
So, no surprise that I agree that low class sizes would be ideal. And this is a tricky problem. And one of the things I think as we approach this problem, we need to think about it from a broader perspective. Our school district spends a lot of money on a lot of different things. And if we would take a step back and look, we would realize that every decision we make has an opportunity cost, which means the value of the next best alternative. And so every time we spend money on something, it means we're not spending money on something else. And so in order to accomplish the most, or as many of the things that we would like to accomplish and that our community values, I think we need to step back and prioritize and look through and hear from the community about which things they value the most. And then we need to see how spending money in one area, what that takes away from another area, and see if there are places that we're spending money now that we would value more lower class sizes. And balancing that out is a really important step in solving this problem and many others.
Well, this is a tricky thing because buildings don't expand on their own. When I went to school, we had classes out in trailers sometimes because it was a priority for that school district to have smaller class sizes, and when you didn't have the current building space, they got creative. And so we have sales tax that is for building funds. I'd have to get in there quite honestly and see what opportunities are there. I know we sold Sangamon. Sangamon had building and room available for it. There's an opportunity cost to not having that building. We now don't have any other space that we can move teachers and kids to because that building is no longer available to us. And it gives me pause, and I wonder what was the cost of giving that building up for, I believe, about 1/3 of what it was valued at, and then long term, what is that going to mean about us having to wait to have facilities that are going to allow us to get class sizes down to state average. So when she talks about opportunity costs, there were some decisions made, and I don't understand why those decisions were made because I didn't see the discussions in the open meetings, but when I don't understand, it gives me pause because that was a building that we could have used to reduce class sizes, and that's not available anymore.
So this is a huge issue, multifaceted, obviously. If you look at the obvious cost, it's the cost of teachers. And the idea of having priorities makes a lot of sense. But when you dig into it, teacher salaries come out of the education fund. The education fund, Trent can correct me if I'm wrong, about 2/3 of that is salaries and benefits. Then you start taking out things like supplies, curriculum, all the other things that have to be paid. There's not much money left in the education fund. You can't pull it out of sales tax, you can't pull it out of transportation, you can't pull it out of IMRF. There's just not the money there to go and add a lot of teachers. So it's not a question of an opportunity cost. The money's already been allocated. Just last year, we did get extra money from the state, and what did we do with it? We added 2 new teachers, K and 4, to reduce class sizes. we're doing exactly what everybody wants us to do. The problem is, Springfield is not doing what we all want them to do in funding education to the levels we'd like to see.
Stacy, can I rebut something real quick? If you're done.
Sure.
Okay.
You know, I just want to make the point, and Jeremy, you kind of hit on this. I have been in school situations in the past where the class size is maybe below the state average. But when you don't have a quality teacher in there, it really doesn't matter how big the class size is. You have got to have quality professional educators in those classrooms, day in and day out, with our students, providing a really strong environment where they can learn. And it's interesting, if you attend school board meetings, we're getting some of the best people in the industry. And they want to come to Mahomet. The reason they want to come to Mahomet is because Mahomet-Seymour is a great place. So I just want to make that point. No one, again, I was the first one to say this, no one up here is advocating for a larger class size. But as a school board member, I'm going to be holding our administrators, their feet very close to the fire, to make sure that we are continuing to put the very best teachers in those classrooms.
Stacy, can I have a response? Yeah.
We got a little bit of time.
Sorry.
Oh, I was saying we got a little bit of time.
Okay, good. Yeah, I would agree. And I think that we have great teachers in our classrooms. I think there's no doubt about that. That's one thing I hear from voters all the time, is how amazing our teachers are and how great they do for our students. The issue with class sizes, though, is whether or not it is a board priority. And if you look at the historical trends, and it's easily accessible on IllinoisReportCard.com, it's maintained by ISBE. If you look at the historical trends, our class sizes have been high for the last 5 years with no changes. I don't know what happened in 4th grade, but in 2018 the class size was 28 students. So maybe we went down 1. I don't know how that section added helped. But if you look at the history, it is clearly not the current board's priority to lower class sizes.
Stacy, can I add one thing?
No, I gotta cut you off.
If you want to look at that same report card, look at that same report card, and look at student performance. Student performance, I think you'd have another thing to look at too. I'm sorry, did you say no? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, I gotta cut you off. I'm sorry. But I did want to give anyone else a chance that had, and I apologize, Jason. So if anyone else, because that seemed to, again, it was one of those topics that was brought up with many of the questions, as well as several times during the conversation tonight earlier. So I want to make sure that, does anyone else have anything else they want to add?
I would if I can.
Okay. Not if you're going to say with Jason. I'm joking. Go ahead.
Again, when we look at class sizes, we all know that everyone wants to have small class sizes, but you can't say fiscal responsibility out of one side of your mouth and small class sizes out of your other, and not talk about how you're going to pay for it. I mean, we have to be realistic. Colleen has mentioned it. We have limited resources. We stretch them as far as we can, and at the end of the day, we live in the real world, and we have to make choices, and they're not always great choices, and we do the best we can. But if you look at the last 4 years and you add them up, we're basically running almost an exactly balanced budget. We're taking every dollar that we have available and sticking it into doing the best we can for our kids. But we're not deficit spending, and we're not raising property taxes. I think we're putting out a really good product. When you look at last year, Mahomet-Seymour ranked number 11 in the state on SAT scores. We were the highest ranked district south of Chicago. That doesn't happen by accident. That is showing that we are performing at an exceptionally high level. And we can talk about class sizes, we can talk about curriculum, we can talk about everything else. But at the end of the day, this district is knocking it out of the park, and we should be proud of that.
Thank you.
So I would agree with what they say, that part of the strength of our district is our fabulous teachers that are really great, and our students are lucky to have them. But I do also want to point out that when we talk about a state average class size, that means other schools in our state who all face the same financial constraints that we do. So every other school has to get their funding from Illinois as well, and somehow they're managing to have it be lower. So I do think that it's a priority for us. Maybe it's not our priority, and that would be okay if the community doesn't prioritize that, but I do think we're facing the same constraints as everyone else.
All right. Megan, you'll be next. All right, not every high school graduate is on a path to college. To our dismay. Some parents prefer that, but seriously, not every high school graduate is on a path to college. And even some who prefer to pursue a trade program. What can the district or what can the board do to create opportunities in the school for those kids?
Well, I mean, my son says, am I going to college? And I say, I don't know, because I think we have to change the way we look at college in this country and how we talk to our kids about college. Because what we're trying to do is build complete people who go out into the world and make a difference in the world. And there are lots of different ways to do that. College is not the only way to do that. I often hear, what are we going to do if you're not going to go to college? How about we say, what would you like to be, and how do we make those opportunities available to you? We talk about SAT scores. Kids have come to me and said the stress about the SAT scores that we're taking, and class ranking goes on, and I have to see my name up there, and then people find out my code name. And the pressure that we're putting on these kids surrounding a test, we're losing in translation the ability to say to them, there is a big wide world. There is more than just a test. If we don't have classes that also reflect the options out there, and we're just making curriculum choices to a test, and we talk to them about a test, and we talk to them about college, and we don't give equal representation and equal talk time to them about the other things that they can do, then of course they don't know that. So we have to have different conversations with our children. We have to talk to them about being whole people and not just the sum of test scores. And then we have to have curriculum in our buildings that show them that there are other things that are of value, that are important, and give them access to try those things out.
Lance?
Well, fortunately, we are showing the kids that. Here's just a quick rundown of some of the career and technical programs, or maybe vocational programs that we offer. And we do this two ways. We do those on-site here in Mahomet High School. We also do those at Parkland. Some of the classes offered at Parkland: automotive technology, computer networking, criminal justice, EMT and firefighting, welding, automotive collision repair. Classes that we offer here in our campus: 3D animation and rendering, technological and architectural design, construction, intro to engineering, manufacturing, digital media, and a whole host of ag classes. So for the children that say, you know what, maybe college isn't for me, and I want to go into some other type of, quote, vocational program, again, we're knocking it out of the park. We are giving kids tons of choices, tons of opportunities to continue their career and build a life for themselves.
So I graduated high school in 1992, and in 1992, if you weren't going to college, then something was wrong with you. That's just kind of the way it was. And Megan, I agree with you. We have kids now that they have so much access to so much more information and opportunities, and I think it's great. Lance, he touched on a lot of things. One thing I think that we have to continue to do, I'm going to go back to our teachers. Our teachers are the people that are interacting with our students on a very intimate level every single day. When it comes to tests, and Megan, I'm also going to agree with you on this, I was a horrible, horrible test taker. I would be below the average. It's so bad it wouldn't even make, I shouldn't even be up here probably. But I had a teacher, Doug Falk, and Doug Falk saw that I had potential. And it's because of Doug Falk, my agricultural instructor back in Cuba, Illinois, that's the reason why I went to the University of Illinois. He said, you can do this, and here's what you need to do. It's helping our kids find their niche. That is so very important. It's not all about athletics. It's not all about band or whatever. We have over 30 different opportunities for our students through organizations between the junior high and high school. And I think it's very important that we help them find their way.
So I have to agree with Lance that we have lots of opportunity, and I'm wondering if our community and our students know about it. Are they given the opportunity to explore? We tend to be a community that is pretty driven for college-bound students. That's a fact, but we do have those opportunities. So if I'm hearing everyone out there, and of course the experiences I've had with 4 kids that have one is almost graduated and 3 have graduated, I realized that as they were entering their junior high years and their high school years, it wasn't shown to them all the different opportunities that were there. So that's a really awesome, cost-free opportunity that we have going here. We have the things in place, and we need to direct our students to explore.
Great question. I think that one way that we could improve is improving our culture and teaching our students and make sure our staff are demonstrating respect and appreciation for folks that want to go into trades, want to go into a technical school, want to go into military service. I think that is an extremely honorable choice for any student, and it confuses me honestly when people try to look down on that. Now, I think the district is doing a pretty good job in informing students about what their options are for their plans. I have an 8th grader, a kindergartner, and a 3-month-old, and so we just had our high school preparation meeting for my 8th grader to choose her classes. And I was very happy to hear both of the counselors talking to all the 8th grade parents saying, you know, if your child is probably not going to be going on a college career path, please come talk to us because we know about what the technical schools are looking for. We know what the military is going to want, and we can help you complete your plan, whatever your child's plan is. I think they did a great job.
Jenny?
I honestly don't think anybody has looked down, or the school district has looked down on people who don't want to go off to college and want to be in the trade. I used to sit on the Home Builders Association board, and what was interesting to me is that the builders have said, we can't get kids interested in building houses. They all want to go off to college. We have a great resource in our community, and that's Parkland College. And I think our administrators, our school district has done a good job of trying to partner with Parkland College and keeping in communication with them to have that connection. As Lance stated, there's a number of things that we're doing with Parkland College. So I don't think that the school district is looking down on kids who don't want to go on to college. It's that we need to provide those resources to those kids.
Everybody's had some good thoughts up here on this topic, and I love what Megan said about developing well-rounded individuals, and that should be part of our focus too, is that there's more than just the academic, there's more than just test scores. We're trying to develop young men and women who are going to be successful in whatever phase of life that they choose to pursue. And we need to provide them opportunities to do those things. I think Lance has given us a wonderful list of things, but there might be something that's not on that list, and if that's something that is needed, then we need to explore those things. I totally agree that sometimes, and my wife and I even have these conversations about, you know, do you need to get the best test scores to get into the best school, to get the best job? When does it end? At some point, you know? Sometimes you just need to be a little happy and content with who you are in life, and that's fine. So it might surprise you coming from 2 physicians that we're not so crazy about all that stuff. That life is more than just test scores and how much money you make and what kind of job you have. We're trying to develop people who are going to contribute to our community.
So, as a college professor, people sometimes ask me about this kind of stuff, about their kids going to college, and they're pretty surprised when I say my opinion is that everyone should be going to trade school. Everyone. But by that I mean we should be identifying what someone wants to do and then giving them the opportunity to be trained in that. And if you want to be an engineer, then your trade school is the university. If you want to be an accountant, your trade school is the university. But if you want to be an electrician, then that's not your trade school, right? We should allow every student to find what their path in life is, and we should support it. And no one, I mean, I said earlier I wouldn't speak for anyone, but I assumed that I could speak for everyone and say no one is going to tell someone you're making a bad choice in life because you don't go to college. No one is actually saying those words. But I think one of the problems is that we have to look at what we're not saying and the message we're giving to students that's not coming out of our mouths, but coming out of how we act, how we treat people, and the subtle message we're giving to make sure that we're letting every student know that whatever choice they make is valid and valuable.
All right, Lance, that was everybody, right? Yep. So Lance, we're going to go to child safety in school. So this all touches on bullying. I mean, bullying in various forms, but in particular, the question was kind of specific. Lunchtime at the elementary level has been the highlight of the school day for many students and parents, or have been the highlight of school day for students and parents for many, many years. Recently, though, the lunchroom environment has drastically changed, becoming rowdy and oftentimes uncontrollable. How can the district work towards making the lunchtime environment the joy it used to be?
Okay. Great question. I haven't been in elementary lunch for quite a while.
And I think, and I think that centers around, either the discipline, so you can speak to, either the discipline practice or just the kind of change of the environment to make it so that it's not as rowdy, if that makes it a little clearer.
Not really.
Okay.
We'll give it a shot. Well, I mean, maybe the bigger issue is just, student behavior in general. That's going to be an issue in public education in any setting forever. I mean, what particular things need to happen in a particular building at lunch. I couldn't say that I haven't been there and experienced it, so I don't know what would be a particular issue that we could change. I mean, Stacy, I gotta be honest, I don't really know what to say about lunch. What building are you talking about?
Apparently it was Lincoln Trail has been the one that's most.
Without ever being there, it's really hard to say. I have no idea what the issue looks like.
Stacy, I mentioned that on the test score part, I was rather low when it came to lunch. I excelled, and I still do. So, I think, again, without, as Lance just said, without really knowing all the specifics of the situation, I think one thing that we have to continue to do, and this goes to really the point of a safe learning environment, we have to have teachers and administrators that are instilling an environment of respect, an environment of trust building. Sometimes people and students react certain ways out of fear, out of distrust. I think if you create that environment, you probably get a lot better performance, a lot better behavior. But again, and what's been said here before, we have to meet the students where they are, and our students today, frankly, are coming from all different types of home environments. Sometimes they're coming to school having not had dinner the night before. So we really have to meet them where they are and understand their needs and try to address them individually as much as possible.
Okay. So, used to love attending lunch with my kids when they were in the lower grades. And what I used to see that was positive, and I actually used it myself when I was leading large groups of kids, is community building. That positive community that you can create in a school environment. It doesn't take that much effort. What I think we need to be looking at as a team, as a school, is what is the behavior, what's the need that is driving the behavior that the kids are having. I'm not there, so I can't speak directly to it, but my thought is that they need some leadership to help them have positive communication with one another, figure out who those kids are that are needing more, and direct it that way.
So this is a great example of where the board needs to meet with administrators and teachers and hear from them what's happening and what options there are. I don't think any of us are experts in school discipline, so I would want to have a dialogue with them. But I'm going to take this question and take the advice of a friend who suggested I answer the question underneath the question, and more relevant to the board, why is it that a situation like this gets to where it does, and how can the board avoid it? It seems to me this is a perfect example of where community engagement with the board and the administration would be key, so that the administrators are aware that this is a problem for parents, that parents are wanting a different kind of culture. I would guess that they aren't aware of it.
Jenny?
All right, when I think of lunch, I think of Kaboody lunch. Yeah. So I think we all think of Kaboody lunch. We all miss Kaboody lunch, and no one can be Kaboody, right? But again, as Ken stated, that in order for the board to be aware of this, in order for the administrators to be aware of this, there has to be public input. Within the board meetings, there are public participations. This is something that if it really truly is an issue for parents, they should come to the board meeting and speak about what they see and the concerns that they see in lunch. I think that our teachers and our administrators continuing to emphasize, the 3 Ds. My daughter, when she started school, it was constantly coming home and saying the 3 Ds. Be kind, be respectful, be responsible. There you go. So I think we do try and teach them these things, but if there's a specific issue, I would encourage those parents to come to the public board meetings and provide their public participation.
I would say this goes even simpler than a board meeting. If there's problems at Lincoln Trail in the cafeteria, then parents need to be letting the administrators know, and then obviously we need to know about it. It doesn't need to get to a level of a board meeting. It should have happened way before that. If we've got a parent coming and talking about problems in a cafeteria, then we've got bigger problems than that. As far as simply how to take care of this, I'm a little bit annoyed. If there's a discipline problem, maybe they don't need as much time to eat lunch. If they're just not hungry, then maybe they shouldn't be sitting there for 15 minutes. Give them 5 minutes to eat, get your nose in the plate, get it done, and get on. I'm serious. I mean, this is ridiculous. If there's an issue like that, it's very simple things that we can do discipline-wise to make it happen.
Colleen?
I'm sorry, I can't get on with the 5-minute lunch. My kid can't eat his lunch in 15 minutes they have. But there have been problems at Lincoln Trail. I have a Lincoln Trailer, so I've heard about the problems at Lincoln Trail lunch. One of the problems, I think, is that the supervision in the cafeteria is not what it used to be. And so that changing that would help. But I also think this is a bigger issue of behavior at schools. And that includes, like you mentioned in the question, bullying and these kind of things. And I think what we need to do is to think about what messages we're sending to kids and how we're doing that. So we, with our voices, say to kids, don't do this behavior, don't do this behavior, don't do this behavior. But if the kids come to us and say I was bullied and we don't do anything about it, then we're really teaching the kids not to complain about bullying, or that we don't really care about it the way we think we do. Or if one kid is about to pulverize another kid and someone steps in physically and we suspend the kid that steps in, then we're saying to the kids, don't stop bullying. And so I think we need to change the way that we, I just think we need to think about, which is really hard because it's a hidden curriculum, right? It's not what we're thinking about, but those unintended consequences I think are really important to think about and address.
This is a big question. This is a lot to unpack. So I too remember the golden years. I used to call it the Kaboody show, and I went as often as I could. And I think for me, I've been talking about lunch kind of in general. I think we're missing an opportunity here to engage with our kids. Our kids are in screens all of the time. If you go out with them, they all sit at a table and eat lunch and look at their phones. We are missing an opportunity to have an engagement with our kids and an expectation that an adult will be there to guide that. I think we have an opportunity at lunchtime to say, you are important, we're going to engage with you, and that's what Mark Cabuti did. He engaged with those kids, he told them that eating was important, he showed them that respecting someone and keeping your hands to yourself was important. He said that eating and focusing on what you're doing so that you could go play was important. So I think the way that we solve this is that we have to have adults saying, we see you, and this too is important, and then we have behaviors that we show and respond to in a way that lets them know that this is important. And this happens, I have a junior high child. This doesn't just happen at the lower levels. At junior high it happens too, and I think it's because it's an opportunity where we need adults to engage a little bit more and show behavior and show them what it could be. And if we do that, then the kids will rise to the occasion because kids do that.
All right, last questions for Colleen to start off with. This one's important enough, and I apologize because their final statements will run a little bit longer than the 8 o'clock hour, but this question was again posed and even posed tonight. Over the last 18 months, the Mahomet-Seymour School District has seen approximately 7 administrative teachers and additional staff leave the school district. Studies show that high turnover harms student achievement. Can you talk about the school board's role in ensuring teachers want to stay in the Mahomet-Seymour School District?
Maybe. I do agree that turnover is a problem. Turnover is, but it is the manifestation of the environment that the people are working in. And so I think that people want to leave when they don't feel valued. I think people want to leave when their working conditions aren't good. People want to leave when they don't feel appreciated or supported or built up or valued. It's just, we need to change the culture. We need to change the idea of the value of our administrators, of the way they work, I'm gonna steal from Lance, I'm not sure. Because I'm not there, it's a good answer, right? But I do think that it probably is just a reflection of the working environment we have. And as a board, we need to address that.
Okay, so the school board is tasked with writing policies and procedures. And that's really how we interact on that level. So when you write policies and procedures, you have to have a feedback loop within that. It's not enough to write a policy and then put a procedure without taking the steps to roll that procedure out, have metrics in place to measure that procedure, have a feedback loop to gather data on that procedure, and then have the flexibility to massage those procedures, so to speak. So if people are leaving, it's because something is broken. And in my experience with process, usually what's broken is communication. So we are not doing a good job of setting policy and procedure that allows people to be heard and give a feedback loop that lets them know that they are important and that they have an impact in their own working environment. And so from a board level, you have to stop with just putting a policy together, and you have to roll that policy out, and you have to have all of those data points and those metrics in place, and you have to ensure that that communication and feedback loop is consistent and works for people so that they feel like they are part of that process, because that's what the board can do, and that's the mechanism for doing it.
Can you just read that again real quick?
Yes.
Just
So over the last 18 months, the Mahomet-Seymour School District has seen approximately 7 administrative teachers or additional staff leave the school district.
Okay.
Studies show that high turnover can have a negative impact on students.
So in 18 months, we've lost 7 people. We've got several hundred staff members. Sometimes people don't leave because things are broken. Sometimes they leave because they retire. Mark Cabuti's been mentioned more than once tonight. He didn't leave because things are broken. He put in his 30-odd years and he was ready to go. Carol Schallenberger didn't leave because things were broken. It was time for her to retire. She had served her time. Justin Franzen went to St. Joe. It wasn't because things were broken. It's because he got a better job. He got to teach with his wife and be in the same district as his kids. You know, we have to be careful that we don't always look at everything and assume it's broken. The the glass is not always half full. You know, there's kind of a theme going on that everything's broken, everything's wrong, everything's bad. That's just not true. This district is performing at a very high level. Folks, we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect. We have 3,100 students, thousands of parents, hundreds of staff members that interact with each other 180 days a year for hours at a time. Things are going to go wrong. That's okay. That is the real world. That doesn't mean everything is broken.
Very early on in my career, I had a client who was a really good friend, and I really respected him, and he had an individual working for him that appeared to be kind of his heir apparent. He was going to take over the business, and I showed up one day, and Doug had left. And I said, oh my gosh, I said, Doug left for another job. And he says, you know what? He said, I've got a theory about that. He said, if I have an employee that takes another job and improves themselves, I have to fully support them and be happy for them. If I have an employee that takes a job that's a lateral move or a step down, then I have to look inside here because I got a problem here. So I think when we look at, employee retention, as a general manager of a company, I don't like to have to say it, but I had to fire people, I've had to hire people and fire people. Sometimes it just isn't working, and I think as a board, we have to be aware of that. We have to make sure that we have the best people. And sometimes people's situations just change. And in a situation like Mr. Franzen, hey, he went and improved himself. Mahomet-Seymour should feel really good about what they did to help St. Joe. And that's so, always, people leaving, it isn't always a bad thing.
Okay, so school board's role in helping teachers want to stay or their staff wanting to stay, I don't know what turnover is typically in a year. What I do know is what I'm hearing from the community is that we're kind of alarmed by the number of changes that are happening. And we're wondering what's happening with the culture. So I would address it as what's causing these recent changes if they are larger, there are a larger number of turnovers than usual. It is a positive, I know it's a positive place to work in Mahomet in general, but I would like to know, is this really a higher level of turnover than we're used to, and what's causing them to leave? It's going to be part of communication, it's going to be part of building that school community, and decision making at the top.
I think we are playing a risky game when we try and interpret why people are leaving our buildings. I think Mr. Kabuti is a really classy guy, and if he was leaving because he was unhappy, I don't think he'd be plastering it all over town. I think he would be saying that he had spent 30 years and he was ready to retire. If it was just a fluke and we had a few people leaving, I would say, yeah, we probably are just experiencing normal change. But when you stop and think about just the administrators at the buildings, the principals and assistant principals, in the last 3 years, we have had a new person in every one of those positions with the exception of Principal Cheek. Every other assistant principal and principal is a new person in the last 3 years. Now, on the teacher side of things, the teachers are, that I've been able to speak to about why they're moving on, they always bring it back to issues with morale and issues with feeling support from their administrators and the school board. Honestly, I think that those are probably issues that never reach the board. I think that the board probably just doesn't realize it, because I think that they would probably act to help these teachers.
So, I guess we keep talking about turnover as a negative, and I think what we need to do is not think of it as a negative, but an opportunity to recruit better teachers and better administrators. And I think we will continue to do that. Mahomet-Seymour is a great school district, and we all know that there are teachers and there are administrators that would kill to be here because they see it as a good school district. They see a good community, an active community, great parents, great students. So I think we need to seize this as an opportunity and not see it as something that's broken.
Stability is definitely one of our goals. We want to create an environment where our teachers are valued, our administrators are valued,
and sometimes it's a delicate balance. The numbers, I can't say I did exit interviews on all 7 of those people. I've only been on board since last June, so I can't. Is that been 30 seconds already? All right. So good, I get 45. So I can't speak to why people have left, and I think making assumptions either way, positive or negative, is a little bit hard to make without having that information. I will say, and just an example of positive turnover, I read something about Nick Saban in Alabama football. I don't know if there's any Alabama fans here. I'm not, but he's had 10 offensive coordinators, I think, in 14 years. And I would say that most people say he's pretty darn successful. And those people have moved on to some other bigger and better things. So I think turnover in itself is not necessarily a negative and may not be a positive either, but we definitely need more information regarding that. I think it's hard for us to sit up here and make a decision based on just numbers.
Closing statements, Ken?
Sorry, can I interject one quick point?
Sure, because you're first anyhow.
Okay, so I just wanted to throw out one more data point because I'm a guy who looks at data. Just last night, the school board approved in their consent agenda the resignation of Principal Starwell at Middletown Prairie. Here's another data point for you. Okay, so I am really excited about the opportunity to serve my community on this board. I think the school board is an incredibly important position for the community to develop educational resources for our children and help them grow to reach their lifelong goals. And I think there's a lot of ways of doing that. And there are many reasons that I'm running. One that I didn't really get a chance to talk about much during this forum is my concern with really the overall lack of discussion and debate and dissent that happens publicly. In the last decade, I've been watching the board for that long, in the last decade, there hasn't been a single non-unanimous vote on this board. Everything that's done publicly is done perfectly unanimously. I serve on a state board that adheres to the Open Meetings Act and follows those laws, and I can tell you that when you're talking about matters that are issues that matter to your representative public, you are going to have debate, you're going to have dissent, and that should be happening out where the public can both hear and participate.
So we're doing closing statements?
We are.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to stress that as a parent, I have advocated for kids with a huge range of ability levels, and one of the things that's empowering is to be a well-informed parent. So that would be one of my goals as a board member, to make sure that you're not afraid to learn what your rights are as a parent. A lot of times it's a little bit elusive. The school district doesn't always put those up front. Another thing that isn't utilized very much is a grievance process. So if you don't feel that your board has listened and responded to you in the way that you want to, I would like to invite and make sure that everyone in our community feels empowered to file a grievance, because that is a learning process. I assist in my job the grievance process, and usually what administrators come back to me and say is, I am so glad that I had the opportunity to hear what we were missing.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Stacy for doing a great job of refereeing this event, and I do apologize. I did not hear you say no earlier, so you can reprimand me later. My dad, who served on our school board back in Cuba for 15 years, he would always tell me, Jason, you can't learn anything with your mouth open. And what I mean by that is, if I'm elected to this board, I'm here to listen to you. I really do want to listen to you, because at the end of the day, this is your school district. The 7 people that